Welcome back, Miss Blondie Locks. Yes.
My new nickname.
I do like this. I like
I'm
the
gonna get it
way
embroidered.
I like the way it's flowing today is all I'm saying. Salmi had she had her flows today too. Did you notice that?
Yeah, she's freaking.
Ladies are getting you ladies are getting out of hand these days, but
Yeah, you got your hands full. I had lunch with those girls.
I got some
You're in trouble.
powerhouse. We have some powerhouse ladies on
We
our
do.
team, don't we?
Yeah.
I think that we wouldn't be where we're at without those types of people. We have to have, like, my new EA is like stone cold type of thing when you talk with her. She's just like a slate, when you deal with her. She's very like, did I say that? What I'm saying?
Yeah, no, she's good.
You get the sense.
You're in trouble.
I like it. I just a little
Got
intimidated, I
some
guess.
strong people in your company.
Well, why don't you introduce look, you're my most you've been on my podcast. You've been on the podcast the most because you're cool and everyone loves you. Who doesn't love Jen? But I'll tell you, we don't just talk about data center shit. You're a data center stud. You're a data center stud. But we're going to talk about the human reset. So this is part 3 of the human reset, right? And we started, it seems like forever ago. How long ago did we start the human reset?
Year and a half ago. So it would have been September 23.
All right. Well, listen. Good Lord, how do you remember this stuff? You scare me. Go ahead and
remember that, Kirk. I remember it all.
I don't like this. Well, look, do me a favor and introduce yourself to all the listeners. I know people probably know who you are, but reintroduce yourself just the same.
Jen Reininger, currently at CleanArc Data Centers with being the director of acquisition. So new role, just started there actually September of 24.
Nice. All right. And then we worked together before.
We did.
Right. And I don't really like a lot of people. I'm like most of America where I don't like anybody from Ohio.
But I am definitely your second favorite Ohio girl.
Some days you're my favorite Ohioan. Just talk to Jesse Sargent.
Well,
right. You guys
have another fan.
You guys
probably give you shit.
Oh yeah, your daughter. Well, she's my favorite Reininger, right? But so you guys have you guys probably live close to the same city. You guys are probably 45 minutes apart, you and Jesse. So the human reset, for anybody that's listening and hasn't heard this podcast is really about really trying to find the industry luminaries that are talking about the industry trends, right? And right now I focus a lot on military veterans because I focus a lot on labor and leadership. We've had a lot of energy, but you and Jesse and I, the two Ohioans, we all took off. I mean, we were all starting journeys around the same time. Anybody that's listening right now, you're either on a journey or you haven't seen the ball since kickoff, but the game started and there's a journey in place and you're just not moving.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And we were all friends. We grew up in the industry together and, we grew through these things together, but we realized that we hit a plateau that, it's not enough. We're trying to fix, being better professionals or being better this. And then what we realize is what we have to focus on is ourselves first. If I want to be a better husband, a better father, a better CEO, a better brother, son, I have to be a better person first, right? So I and the rest of the leaders on my team, we all started on these human resets. We each started these journeys, and each one has had a profound impact on us. You were just right at the wrong place at the wrong time, and then we got. But you were next thing you know, you're right in the ranks going through your own journey. Why don't you, for people that are listening, there are 2 types of people in this world. There are those that struggle through the circumstances of life. Then there are those that lie about it and say they don't. Either way, we're all struggling with something.
Everyone is. Everyone's got their own cross to bear. Everyone's got their own burdens, right? Like their own story.
Right. So, although, remove the elements in which you had to battle all the things about being so short and just stick to the other things.
So heels fix that for the record. But I don't wear them.
But listen, the reality is every one of us, man and woman, we're trying to strive. I mean, people don't want to be miserable, right? We went through COVID. We had this huge hangover of COVID. And then, we're in the middle of this election cycle and, everything's about fear in the media and everything's about this is bad and that is bad. And at the same time, people are like, dude, what am I doing? What am I doing with my career? What am I doing with my life? And
they feel stuck,
right?
Like they feel completely stuck, but it's a choice.
So you're going to unpackage all this for us, and I'll shut up here in a second, but I want the listeners to understand so I can set this up. Go back in time and listen to the other 2 podcasts from Jen Reininger. And while you're at it, listen to the 2 podcasts from Jesse Sargent, 2 people from the industry that I've known for years, one man, one woman. And the 2 of you where like Jesse's going through the trials and tribulation of being a married man in this world and all the things that go on with this, and you were going through all the trials and tribulations of being a single mother, going through the same thing. And like I think the more that we understand what our brothers and sisters are going through, empathy, which is a great part of human nature, lends itself to one, the ability for groups like you to inspire others with your stories, and two, to educate those that like there are people that felt like you did a year and a half, 2 years ago when you
Yeah.
started your journey, and they just didn't know where to begin, right? So, Jen, I'm glad that you came because this is part 3. I hope that people go back and we should do a collage between Gen 1.0, Gen 2.0, but like I'm staring at Gen 3.0 right now and you're unrecognizable, right? So let's talk about this because there are people that are listening and they want a silver bullet for the answer. They want what you have right now, but they want it 2 days after they found out they were unhappy.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
So look, if you want something that matters, you have to be what others aren't, and that's consistent in your drive, right? So, Jen, it's been a long time since we sat down. I don't remember necessarily all the details of Gen 1.0 and Gen 2.0. Tell us about Gen 3.0.
3 up. Okay, well, maybe we should back it up, right? So some of these people may not have, seen the other ones, but they should go back and watch them, right? But like I remember, standing outside of the hotel at DCAC in 2023 and knowing I needed to have a change, right? And, I saw you and Carly going out. I made the bad mistake of not wearing socks and wearing just my
Yeah.
Vans or whatever on that really long walk.
Yeah, you're like
you
I'm
know,
like, "You got Vans on." You're like, I got this." And I was like, "All right." You came back with blisters?
totally came back. But I didn't even tell you, I don't think until like
Yeah.
one of the podcasts later or whatever.
I had no idea.
And, so it was, kind of started there, but I knew that I needed there to be something, right? I was kind of stuck, I was kind of stuck professionally. I was kind of stuck, personally. And I saw something inside you and Carly just by going on that walk that I was like, I'm going to feed on some of this energy and kind of figure this out. And that's kind of when we first started the first, phase of it, right? Where,
Yeah.
I was Kirk, give me whatever you can send me to read, right?
Yeah.
Like I was like asking you like every day and you're like, geez, hold on, let me go back and
What a
see what I can
psychopath.
find. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
No,
like
you
I
were
know I'm all in or
insatiable.
not, right? Like that's just the kind of person I am, right? Like I'm either 110% or I'm not.
Very true.
And so it's for me it's an all or nothing thing. So when we started that, I was like, I'm all in, right? And which is helpful, right? Like when you have that personality where you're like, I'm just gonna take it, full force. And so we started that. We started with the walking, the 30-30 for 30, with just the reading of just kind of improving myself in my career and learning and even jumping into things that I didn't like. Like I hate dealing with financial stuff. Like not gonna lie, it's not one of my things, but I remember, one of the guys, that was mentoring me, as well, he was like, "You can either just keep growing on the things that you're strong at, or you can go challenge yourself with things that you struggle with." And, like, I still hate financial stuff,
Yeah,
like,
you don't
I'll
have
be
to
the
like
first
it.
yeah, I don't have to like it, but, I do ask the questions, I do kinda do some of the research, will it be something I'm ever gonna, like, engulf myself with on a daily basis? No. Like, but
Well, I'm
I'll
like, "Thank
start
God for
learning to
AI.
Topco
Thank
and
for"
Opco,
Yeah.
like, learn all that stuff, like so, there is that part. So you just have to, challenge yourself. And so, taking us now to the Gen 3.0, I have, like faced a lot of the fears that were really holding me back that probably were the things that kind of made me, feel stuck, right? Because I wasn't challenging, myself or getting outside of my comfort zone. And now, I'm not gonna lie, like I feel like any of the things that I am fearful of, heights, right? Like deathly afraid of heights, I took that one on as well. So,
Well, people
it's
don't know what you mean by that is you went to Hawaii this year to PTC with us, and you flew around in a helicopter
I did.
that had no doors, and we did angles and dangles.
It was nuts. I'm not gonna lie. So like back in 23, the summer of 23, I went on a family trip with my kids and my sister and her family. And California does not have guardrails, right, on the mountains, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" Pulled over crying, felt like such a loser in front of my kids that I couldn't drive on these mountains, like, I had to make my sister do it because I was like, "I'm dizzy, like, what if I just, like, literally run off the cliff?" Like, that's it. And, like, that really bothered me, that whole summer, and all this time, right,
And
like,
you wimped out like
that I
that?
freaking wimped out, like, freaking crying like a little baby, like, in front of my kids, and, like, sure, they've seen me cry about things before, but, like, not
That
Not about something like that. Like, they've never seen me be fearful. They've seen me, like,
overwhelmed.
cried
Yeah.
about being, like, ticked off or, frustrated or angry, but, and that's fine. But, like, being fearful, like, that really bothered me. But I wasn't at that point willing to change it, like, there were some things, like, we would do the hikes, and I would do some parts of the hikes, relentless, like, not wanting to, but I did some, but not what I should have, to give them the full experience. So that, was one of the things. But yeah, so we went, 3 years you've been telling me, "Oh, Jen, we're gonna take you on this helicopter ride." And I'm like, "Thank God I'm not going to PTC this year." Like, how I dodge that bullet. But yeah, so we went this year, and I was so lucky that I was able to kind of, like, have a crew that had been mentors for me,
Sure.
over the years of my career. So we had Kevin Timmons
Yeah.
and, Anna Murphy,
Yeah.
and they were on either side of me in the helicopter, right? And, like, both of them have had profound impacts on my career.
Good dudes. They definitely care about you. They care about
Fantastic.
others.
Yeah, like, you couldn't ask for, better
Yeah.
mentors. Wonderful guys. And so, like, I had them on either side of me, and, as we're, like, flying, there's no doors. We have seat belts, but, like, we're definitely, like, taking some
Yeah.
weird turns, and, maybe that helped me jump out of the helicopter. I don't know, but I remember, like, just holding onto that seat going, "Nope, nope," like, closing my eyes, like, "Okay, I am ready to jump
But you
out."
crushed it.
I did. I got to the edge, and I have no idea what the guy was saying to me, like, it was so loud, and, like, he was probably telling me, "Don't jump," or something, and I was like, "I'm doing it," like, jumped right out.
He's awesome. Scuba
Yeah.
Steve.
Oh, no, it was his, partner in it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It
that's
was the
right.
other
You
guy.
were out on the first cast.
Yeah,
You
yep.
guys were the very first ones to jump.
'Cause I
Yeah.
wanted to be the first one.
That's right. You wanted to get it over with, I think. But
I was excited about it, I can't lie.
well, listen, I mean, like jumping out of a helicopter and into the ocean from a height is dangerous, regardless of what height we're at. We play around with these things. We're not there to be daredevils. We were there to. Everything we were doing was trying to force people to do things that made them the most uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I've never done that event with people at PTC, and we do it every year, in which someone hasn't had a profound impact on their life in some capacity. There are people that have come to me and been like, dude, you lit something inside of us with that. And that's, I believe that as professionals, man, it's just not enough to be good at what you
No.
can do. You have to really care about people that you're working with to make it
Mhm.
fun, meaningful. So everybody that was on that helicopter, I think, had a great time. I mean,
Absolutely.
we were doing waves of people in the helicopter, right? And you did the scuba diving afterwards too, didn't you?
I did, and, that was, like, the thing I was looking forward to the most. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, "All right, I'll do the helicopter jump because I know I gotta face fears, like, da 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 da." I'm really excited about the scuba dive. I actually was not like, for me, it just wasn't my thing, like, and I was
Scuba
really
diving?
disappointed. I was
Yeah.
disappointed that it was like, for me, like, it was I felt claustrophobic down there, which is weird, right? You're in a freaking giant ocean. I think
It's
it's
the breathing.
yeah,
Yeah,
really
you
bad at breathing, apparently.
yeah.
I mean, it
When you
must be the
first get
blonde
into it,
hair
you're
and the Ohio thing, I don't know.
look, it's my job to trash the blondes and the Ions.
I'm just beating you to it, Kirk.
My thing is, it takes time uh to get used to breathing through one of those,
Yeah.
and understanding how to calm your breathing pattern down because everyone's kind of an airwolf when they first start, and you're sucking through your tank so fast that you're only diving very, very little time. We weren't very deep,
Yeah.
and we were exploring a pipeline. There wasn't much shit there, but it was. You're really there to jump out of a helicopter. Let's get this back to the top of that.
Yep.
You were talking about Gen 3.0 and how you relentlessly had an event that happened to you and you left that event and you weren't happy with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to the awareness and the awakening that's taking place. I think a lot of people have, like Jesse Sargent, another Ohioan who's here. I mean, he'll say rock bottom's the greatest place to build from. It's such a solid place, but you kind of have to get sick of your own bullshit, right? You got sick of your own bullshit, it sounds like, and he got sick of his own bullshit. And he's coming on to do his phase 3.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah, I'm going to record, and he's also like you, unrecognizable, right? And this is probably the most inspiring part of the podcast that we get. We have podcasts and packaging the most complicated shit in this industry. How do we get microgrids? What are we going to do for nuclear reactors? What are we doing for energy as a whole? Natural gas is the bridge and the gas. So we're doing that, plus building space power and cooling and all the other things that go with it. But human beings seems to be the number one area in which the tenets of our human biology don't allow us to iterate and evolve as quickly as technology does. But we get to use that technology to better understand ourselves. I mean, there was a time in that in which I was talking to you and you're monitoring your heart.
Yeah.
Right. So like take us through, 1, 2, and then between 2 and 3 is where it probably was the hardest part of your journey, but probably the most worth it. Would you agree?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
walk us through the uncomfortable. You got used to doing things that made you uncomfortable
Yep.
until you started getting comfortable doing it because you found the value in that. But walk us through the other pieces.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking about, you know, taking these uncomfortable spots, and we're all gonna go through uncomfortable things in life, right? Whether it be family, work, you know, other sports, anything, right? Anything that's worth doing. I actually just had this conversation with my son talking about ACTs, right? And he was like, "God, studying for this ACT, it's been extremely, draining, but I know it's for the good, right?" And I said, "Yeah, this is, look at it as like
Suffer
this
now or
is
suffer later.
yeah, that's exactly it." And I was like, "It's no different than you working out at the gym. You're not going to see these results right after you study, right? You have to study for a long time. So this is kind of where we're going with it." So, like him taking the ACTs and, complaining about it draining, I was like, this is life, and I immediately thought back to, and this literally just happened yesterday, immediately thought back to the challenges, that, I've gone through, both professionally, personally, and how, at the time, I wasn't looking at it as all of these, challenges, no matter the size, right, big or small, were preparing me for future challenges. And, it's basically just like exercise, right? Like you got to do, these things consistently so you're ready for when, the challenge or the day comes, so, your sporting event or your test, and that's basically all this is, right? In life,
It's a game.
it's a game, and you gotta train for it, and if you're not training every day for it, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally, you're not gonna be, ready when the test day comes or, the event happens, and, so I was, kind of like, "Oh, that's really ironic." I, went through all this stuff too, and I'm using this as an example for my kid, but yeah, I mean, I was letting stress, from, my own situations, affect me. And I didn't realize how profound, certain stressors in your life can affect you physically, to the point where, like you were saying, like I was monitoring my heart. I had to wear a heart monitor, and
Because the amount of stress.
because the amount of stress that I was, going through at that time. And I was like, this isn't okay, right? So this was, I could stay in this quote unquote comfort zone, right? And just keep going, or I could do something about it and, pull myself out of that situation because, I could take that challenge and move on. And because of all of these other small, training sessions that I had gone through, and I don't think I probably would have made that drastic change, in my situation had it not been, for that, year, building up to, you know the final change.
Look, and it's a bunch of little things.
It is the little
It's not
things. It
there's no
was
silver bullet.
no, not a silver bullet. It is the consistency of the, the walking or working out every day. It's the expanding your knowledge, bettering yourself, whether it be professionally, emotionally, spiritually. It's all of it, right? You have to have all the pieces to build the foundation before you're going to build yourself up. And so when Jesse says, rock bottom's the best place to build from, well, the strongest houses have basements, right? So
Yeah.
you got to have that foundation to be able to grow and, expand.
What did you discover most about yourself as an example? One of the biggest, uh when I'm on my journey. Still on a journey.
We all are, right? Like,
You never arrive. You're just trying to get to one level, then the next, and the
yep.
next, and the next. I'm in a really cool manifestation level right now that I've never felt healthier and stronger, and I've never been more excited about the things that I get to do in this industry. Right? I think our industry is punk rock. I think this industry has the ability to transform humanity in a way that we haven't seen since powered flight. I know that what I didn't anticipate was the liquidation of humans that would be in my life. I I didn't I started one of my things was I had to establish healthier boundaries,
Mhm.
because I'm a very selfless person. I'll do anything for people. That's a great strength. It's also a great weakness, right? That many veterans share, right? So I will. I learned, I was killing myself trying to help others, and then I don't ever have anything for myself. Shifted the optics on how I viewed my life. Started putting myself first. In many respects, remember we had that on a
Yep.
podcast. It's hard for as a mom, as an example.
Yes.
But
Absolutely.
but I didn't anticipate it wasn't like I had a liquidation of friends and I'm not friends with these people anymore, but I certainly
Unfriended them on Facebook.
never. Maybe one, no, but who has a Facebook? But my thing is
Old.
I I didn't realize that as I strived to become a healthier version of myself that I would some people that were just my fun friends, they're still great people, but they're not people I got to hang out with as much because I was no longer as much fun. You know,
Yep.
I'd wake up in the morning, so I wasn't drinking heavy at night, and I'm fun when I'm drunk, but I had a hard time trying to be fun sober, right? So I'm figuring those things out.
Yep.
You learn a lot about yourself in that case, and that was my long-winded example. Tell us some examples of some of the shit that you learned about yourself and what you learned as a byproduct of those around you. Did you change the environments you're in? Did you change the people that you allowed in your environments?
I absolutely did, and I always had a hard time, creating boundaries. I was a people pleaser all growing up, wanted to please anyone that came through my life, and I remember my sister being like, "Pff, you shouldn't care so much about what other people think." And I remember just being like, "Well, that's really awful," but she was right. Like, set the boundaries. And so I did start setting those boundaries, and I found that the people that I set boundaries with, that, were close friends or worth keeping around, they became closer friends and, bigger supporters and, part of a tighter knit group.
Yeah.
And the people that really resented, being told, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or no, that's not going to work today, um, really resented that. And they kind of just went on their own way, which is fine, doesn't mean that, I have any resentment towards them. It just means that it just wasn't a necessary fit in my life or me and theirs, right? So I feel like it really grew certain relationships a lot stronger. And then really just kind of weeded out, the relationships that, weren't going to grow myself or them, right? So if I wasn't, pouring into them all the time, they weren't, receiving that from me. And so they were like, well, we don't want to pour back, so it's got to be a mutual thing. And I think that it was very helpful work wise, as well. And the work relationships that I had, where, even the people that I used to work with, I feel like even though I'm no longer, directly working with them, we probably even have a stronger relationship, now because we're not forced to be friends or, have that relationship because we're no longer, working together daily. But now it's a choice, and so we have built something stronger that probably is, gonna last longer than, had I just stayed, working with them, for however long. So I think it's really creates truer friendships or truer relationships.
I found that most of my relationships are way more intentional and deliberate now, so that's why I'm like, I didn't have a liquidation of people. I just had a reinforcement, like a validation of people,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I'm just as busy as I've always been. It's just who I'm busy with now may have changed.
Yes.
What are some of the other things you learned about yourself?
So we were kind of talking about this, I think, earlier on the way over here. So one of my mentors used to tell me all the time, like when I'd call him up, like just wanting to vent, right? And like, I'm short. I probably have short woman syndrome, to a degree. So like, I can get a little fiery at times.
Yeah, of course.
And, I'd call him up and I'd be like, blowing up. And he'd be like, whoa, like anger is a useless emotion.
Yeah.
And now my sister still disagrees with me on this. But I was like, you're right. Like in the moment, like I was like, BS, like, whatever, like, I feel it, like, it's coming out. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, he's 100% right. And I will say I'm probably a much calmer person now. Like, just had a incident, come up recently, at home with the kids, and, like, probably should have literally blown my lid, right? And I didn't. Stayed calm, like, it was like, "Well, anger's not gonna fix this, so, let's kinda sit down and figure this out." So I think the way I react to situations, because of all of these other situations I've gone through, both professionally and personally, have kind of, like, created this, Gen 3.0, where, like, anger is a useless emotion, use that energy of the anger, for something productive. Sure, am I still probably gonna get upset and mad at some point? Probably, but I think it will be a quicker recovery time, for that.
So I look at anger as a part of human nature, so I get it, right? And I know that people like this. The most dangerous soldier, they say, is the one that can control their emotions the best, right?
Mhm.
So in theory, we all want to control our emotions. I look at it almost like an emotional range,
Mhm.
right? So uh, I have a guy that works on my team, and he is passionate, has his heart on his sleeve. The beauty about him is you always know where you stand with him because he'll tell you.
Mhm.
The thing about it is he would go from 0 to full red ass crazy in 3 seconds. Now it takes 30, right? His
Yeah.
emotional range got bigger, so you have to go twice as far if not 10 times as far to get to the point to trigger him now, right? Because in his journey of becoming, you're talking about in your journey, you started setting boundaries. And I mean, you created a lot of habits,
Yes.
habits in the way you ate, the way you slept, and how you took care of yourself. I mean, I can tell how much a person cares about themselves based on the way that they present themselves.
Mhm.
If you have let yourself completely go, then it's probably correlated to the amount of respect or love you have for yourself. And you have to figure that problem out first, and then the rest
Yeah.
takes care of itself, right? But I mean, finding out how to establish boundaries and then figuring out and discovering, hey, what used to piss me off doesn't. I'm the same. Like I was having a conversation with members of my team. Look, don't get me wrong, I still get pissed, but there were things that I could totally see a year ago or 2 years ago, me responding to in a way that would have made me a less effective leader.
Yes.
And today I'm trying to find a way to respond in a way that's appropriate. I'm responding, not reacting, and I'm responding in a way that's proportionate to the problem. And I'm not saying like a little emotion every now and then doesn't hurt, but it is the function of if I'm pissed, but I'm in control the whole time, and a lot of it is just like in the military they call it firing for effect. Like just keep their heads down, just shoot that direction so they're keep their heads down, right? But sometimes there's just a little bit of how you move the players on the board, to get to the queen. You're going to run after a few things, and I think that I had a stronger emotional range, which allowed me to be more strategic in my life. Did you find that?
Yes. Like the actions I took were more deliberate and more methodically thought out.
Sure.
Instead of like when you said like, sure, like I was just reacting. Like I was, probably because I was in, survival mode. It was you
To
just
trigger.
react, right? Like it would just trigger and react and like that's what it was. And now, when, situations arise, it's more of, okay, like, I take a step back, like, I'm like, "Man, it only took me how many years of my life, to figure this out?" But it has been extremely beneficial, and I, like, really hope that other people figure it out, quicker than it took me to get it, but it really is a lot more methodically done, in my responses now.
Well, 90 to 95% of what we do is driven based on our subconscious, and a majority of your subconscious is already defined between the ages of 7 and 9. So there's shit that happens that you respond to, and you literally have no idea why,
Mhm.
because something happened at 5 and you don't remember it, but it
Yeah.
trained you to be triggered on that, and you emotionally responded that way then, so you'll respond that way this. But I'll tell you, like, we could all fix this shit. I was just
Yeah.
listening to a podcast about the human, mind and the operating system that we have, and we just have to kind of tell ourselves what we wanted to do and it follows type of thing. But people don't realize that the problem is typically them, right? They have a problem with
100%.
everybody else. And you're like, the problem is you. Am I wrong?
You're 100% right here.
So like, I found a lot of shit that I had to go fix.
Yeah.
I mean, you're from Ohio. You must have had a ton of shit to fix, right? So
Not as much as those from Southern California, but
not as much as those from Michigan that play football either. Is that
we don't like
too soon?
Michigan.
All right.
No.
So, what did you find? Like, keep unpack. Right now, there are people that are where you were 2 years ago, or a DCAC ish, where it's not like you were miserable. I mean, look,
No. Always been a ray of sunshine, Kirk.
I knew. Listen, you were always fun. I saw you at every conference. We rolled in the same circles and stuff. It's just one day, like I mean, a DCAC by then. I mean, even on the day of DCAC that night, I went to a bar to try to say hi to people, and I got shit on for the conference for
In
like
23 or 24?
every year.
Every year.
Every year, I try to not go out now.
Yeah.
I love to go out, but whatever. I mean, it could be, hey, it's too hot for the golf, or we didn't have enough tacos, or. But people don't
Well,
typically
it's too heavy.
people don't come up and tell, "Hey, dude, that was awesome." Most of the time, it's like what you didn't have. The line to get food was 45 minutes. It's unacceptable. I'm like, I'm sorry, but like, I got to the
See,
point.
that's so funny because, like, all I hear is all the positive stuff. So I'm gonna just start sending them to you when they come to me.
I don't mind the negative stuff because what I've learned in the patterns that I follow is that everything is fixable so far. But those evenings, I don't go to the parties anymore. I typically go work out,
Yeah.
right? And I have found, like that's not a liquidation of people. That's just me setting a boundary behind where I want to be with my energy and my time. And I just want to be a better whatever it is that I'm trying to be right now. So I found more habits, and I'm like I don't get book requests from you anymore. So it sounds like you picked up your podcast, you picked up your books. You're probably getting fed from multiple of different areas now, but like some of the things that you were learning about your boundaries, your emotional range. By then, Were you where you wanted to be physically? Because you got into, like, you jumped in the pool in the cold plunge, like,
Yeah, that
literally
was
with all your
serious.
clothes on. Yeah, I was like, "Hey, listen, let's talk some shit." There's no way she's gonna jump into it. I turn
You're
around,
like,
like, "Where's Jen?" They're like, "Oh, she's already in with her clothes on." And I was like, "Damn, that's cold. I wasn't gonna get
it
in with
was
my clothes."
cold. It was well, it's because you said, "Well, maybe the next time you're down, you will have grown enough to be able to handle that." And I was like, "Oh, screw you, Kirk. Like, let me show you."
That was not a psychic game. I didn't expect you to get to that point, but you definitely had some grit and a chip on your shoulder, and you wanted to get in there, and, like, you were literally like, describe to people where you were at, because let people understand that, like, Jesse calls it rock bottom where he was, at, and from a man's perspective, a man dies 3 times, when they're no longer dangerous, essentially, and for women, it's a completely different. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
there has to you were at a point in your mind, it seemed as though, where you just woke up and were like, "I'm not happy with the circumstance of my life, and I'm
Yeah,
not
I
re."
wouldn't say that I was, rock bottom or anything like
Yeah,
that. I was stagnant, and I'm not okay being stagnant.
yeah,
I'm a very competitive person, like, you tell me I can't jump in the pool, I'm jumping in the pool. You tell me I can't go do this, like, I'm gonna go do this, right? So, it was one of the kinda like that where I was just like, I don't feel growth is happening.
yeah,
And I was used to constantly being challenged and constantly growing. And, that's what kind of spearheaded it. So it was at that point, it really wasn't an outside source or that I hit rock bottom. It was I wanted change. And the only person that can create change for you is yourself.
yeah,
And you have to want it. And then you have to be dedicated and actually do it. There are many times I didn't want to go freaking walking for an hour, right? There are still days I don't want to go walking for an
yeah,
hour, but I'll do it inside this time of year, right? But in the summer I'll be outside doing the 30 for 30. Otherwise, when it's
it's
really
a
cold and
lifestyle.
rainy, yeah, like I do it inside. But one of the things, and actually you'll be really proud of this because the last time we did ours, on the Gen 2.0, you were challenging me to go do some group classes. And I am not a group class kind of workout person. Like I'm very individualized. Like I don't want to do it with other people. I want it, I just want to do my own thing.
Just one
And
of those tiny people that doesn't like other people.
I really don't like other people.
Yeah,
Like I used to love people. No, just kidding.
but you did it.
But I did it. I actually went and I took a Pilates class. And will I take more? Yes, probably not at that place because it has to be the same day, same time, and like my travel schedule does not accommodate to that level of routine, on someone else's schedule. So, but I did enjoy the Pilates. Thought it was a great workout. So I will go back and do something like that again. I just had to find one that's going to work for my schedule. So that was one of the things, and then the other thing, I grew up riding horses. That's all I did. I ate, slept, breathed, showed horses, all the way, up to college. Um, Still have horses, but I let my daughter do it now. But, one of the people that has recently come into my life, is like an influence, was like, why don't you ride anymore? I was
Because
thinking
you're
about,
old, did you
because I'm
tell 'em
old
that?
and I'll freaking like break a hip if I fall off. Like someone's got to
Dude,
pay
I
the
don't wanna
bills.
get on one of those monsters. I don't
And
I'm beyond that.
yeah, so I was like, it's a really good question. And my response, was like, I don't know, like, I just don't really have time but, after really reflecting on it, because I was like, well, why don't I? Like, we own the horse. The horse is the daughter of the horse I had growing up, right? Like, I've had it since, well, before it was even born, right? And I was like, I think one of it was I'm so competitive. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I want to go all out. And like, this is my daughter's time to do it. And I was like, we don't have to do that. Like, you can just get on and have fun. And so changing my mindset on that, I've been back, and riding a lot more regularly. And
Right.
it really has helped. I'll tell you what, like riding versus like doing an hour on the elliptical, totally different things, by the way. Like
Completely different workout.
my heart keeps telling me like it may be like done, 15 minutes on the horse. So like totally different type of workout. But it was one of those things. It was a really good question. Everyone had offered me, to ride or whatever, and I hadn't really thought about it. And so that's another thing that I'm, just expanding upon, of things that make me happy, things that it will challenge me. The other part, I didn't really care to ride was, am I going to be as good as I was back then? No, I sure as hell am not as good as I was, back when, I did it all the time. But I had to learn to accept like, it's okay. You can change that, if you keep
Yeah.
doing it, you'll change it. So
So I I want to make sure that we're tracking these things because
Mhm.
I think that everything we do is repeatable, right? And if I can do it, anybody could do it, so to speak. Is the way I look at it. It's just a function of absence. Really, most of the time it's not that I'm doing something. I just stop doing something that has the greatest benefit to me, sadly. But like emotional range, understanding some of the other things that you went through, to figure out what mattered most to you. But in this case, the way you described it is you're trying to figure out how to have a lifestyle change to where you're doing things that were fun. And you had to open the aperture really and revisit some of these. There's a lot of people that are like, I talk to people about food a lot. I'm like, hey, do you like this? Like, I hate that food. I'm like, since
Like
when?
salmon?
I'll eat it if I have to, but it's the worst fish to eat. There's so many better fish. But I also, I just ate so much of that growing up
I
that
know,
it's
I
the
know.
one
I
thing.
just love giving you
But my thing is I have to like, I was literally getting ready to go into a restaurant and they're like, "Well, what do they have there?" I'm like, "They actually have the only salmon I like." And the person's like, "You're gonna eat salmon?" I'm like, "If it's from there." Right? But my thing is there's this huge thing where you kinda I think one of the things that triggered some of the stuff was you were talking about shit, and I'm like, "Well, what would make you happy? What would make you happy about this? What makes you happy about that? What makes you and about everything," you know? And I think that you took that and you're like, "That's a good question. I'm not really sure yet what makes me happy." And you were out just kinda scratching the paint with shit. Be like, "Is it Pilates? Nope. Is it this a horse? Hey, that makes sense." But you just kept kinda cycling through shit, and I want that to be the message for people because I think people get disenchanted real easy while trying to find change. They pivot hard into this because in a moment of time, they were inspired by something externally. I don't think that that was what we did for you. In fact, I'm not a cheerleader. I'm the opposite
no,
probably.
you were definitely not my cheerleader.
Right. So and at the same time, you we don't do that to others because you need to be internally driven,
Yeah.
right? So like we're not going to be there on the there is no there is no traffic on that lost lonely mile, right? When you're trying to really hit these plateaus. And it is I kind of look at the leveling of the game of life just like I would a video game. You get to a certain end of that level and it's always the hardest level. That test is always the most challenging test and you don't get to the next level until you've done it. So normally I can see the patterns like when I'm really struggling, I look at those moments of struggle to where I'm really just getting things wrapped up and done to make room for new, better things that are coming into my life. And that's how I level up, right? But there are people that don't understand that stuff. And for you, we weren't coaching you. We were providing you with the same resources that we were providing the rest of our teams and
Yeah.
all of our other people that we were using. And I mean, it's very simple, like it's harder than you thought to walk for 30 minutes some direction and turn around and walk 30 minutes back to do something like that for 30 straight days. How many people were on 30, 30 for 30 that found it really struggling when they're like, it's just walking. It's easy. And I'm like, cool, do it. And they can't. You know how many people have sent me like, dude, no, I have to put in the gym because I need to work out. I'm like, cool. This is not a gym workout. This is a mind
Yeah.
discipline study and everybody quits. 80% of everyone that tries this finds an excuse to where they can't do one thing physically just as hard as walking for 30 minutes out and 30 minutes back for 30 straight days. There's a million excuses, right?
Absolutely.
So for you, you were so internally driven and focused. Did you know what was driving you at that time? You just were
I was just tired of being stagnant, and
stagnant.
I was like, I wanna be better. I've got kids watching me, like, because I can only be as, good for them as, if I'm good. Work, I wanted to grow in my career, right? And, those 2 things, and then, when I was working on those 2 things, and I was like, I wanna better myself internally too, right? Those were kind of my drivers. And then I will say, like, after that first podcast, or when we did the reset, people were just reaching out to me out of the woodwork, people that I had never met before. And, they're like, oh my gosh, like what you were saying, like really spoke to me. Like, thanks for inspiring me. And I was just like, I was just telling my story. Like, I think it's fantastic that, like, other people, listen to it and
We're
it
all
inspired
humans.
them. Yeah.
Everybody, like I said, there's only two types of people: those that feel the same way that you and I do, and those that lie about it and pretend they don't because
Yeah.
they're tough or not, but they're just lying to themselves. At some point, we all are vulnerable. We all have blind spots and we all have weaknesses and insecurities. It's just some people are choosing to go fix those, and some are figuring out a way to make it to where they're not revealing it to anybody, but everybody sees the blind spot.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right on that, and I don't like telling you when you're right.
Nobody does. I have that effect on a lot of people. But But I want those that called you on the first podcast, I want a whole fleet of them to call you on this because we're trying to improve the labor force for the entire industry.
Yeah.
I could bring on people to talk about how we're going to deliver energy.
Yeah.
And there's no silver bullet for that. There's 5 different permutations and how we're going to roll out that are going to be mainstream. And it's going to be so dynamic and ballistic. It'll be iterative, just like every last quarter in this industry, which is never the same as the previous quarter, right?
Yeah.
So we're in the gold rush right now, and it is such an amazing inflection point for our industry. But humans are the number one laggard for this industry. It's not energy. If we don't get more output and productivity
Which
from
is
our
surprising.
well, if you don't have enough output and productivity from your humans, from your team, then you'll never solve for energy.
Yep.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
you need people that everybody's dealing with something at home. Every single person. They have a relationship. Somebody's unhappy with it. A lot of it is in their bodies. A lot of people just kind of let their shit go, and they're not sure where to start.
Yeah.
They don't know where to begin, but they are stagnant in their life, in their health.
Yeah.
And they're like, look, man, I've had enough fun, but now I need to change. But they don't know how. For us, you just tagged along on a walk, and then everything that we didn't feed it to you. You would ask questions, and as you had questions, we had no problem answering your questions, but it wasn't us jamming shit down you.
No.
You have to be on a journey where you're exploring and trying to truly discover what makes you happy. If I were to go find 10 people right now and ask them what is their purpose in life, 9 out of 10 of them can't tell me. If I were to ask them what was fulfilling to them in their life, I bet you for those that are listening right now, ask yourself, what is your purpose in life? What would make you happy? What is in your highest good? Like what would make you the happiest, right? And most people don't know those things because they're so busy pleasing others, and then they're not trying to understand what would make them happy. And I think that they wait for others to make them happy, or there's someone else trying to make someone else happy, and it doesn't work that way
No,
either.
you can't. You have to, when you start going down that path, right? Then no one's going to be happy. If you're not happy with yourself, then you got to work on that homework before.
So in those days where you had no motivation, how did you get your ass out of bed still?
I've got 2 kids watching.
Oh. So you kind of were
Yeah.
like, look, I have to be. So look, that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a mom to do that. You can be a dad. Like I
Yeah.
do the same.
Yeah.
I need to be an example for how can I demand excellence from them while they watch me tolerate mediocrity for myself? Right.
That
So
was
like,
exactly it.
so you, okay. So, but once you got to it, what was the impact that it made on your family life then? If you wanted to you started at home. I mean, did it have an impact on the relationships you had with other humans in your family?
Yeah. So both kids have gone out and done walks with me, whether they're having a good day or bad day. But we really found that on those bad days, hey, just why don't you go join mom for the walk, and sit there and, walk and talk. And I remember, one day one of the kids was having just a bad morning. And I said, you know what? Why don't you skip school? I let the kiddos
Every now
stay
and
home.
then,
Yeah,
that's
it was
okay.
fine. And I said, we're just gonna make this a mental health day. And you know what? We're gonna go be active though. You're not gonna sit at home and wallow in, your whatever issue you have going on. You're gonna get up, you're gonna go walking with me, 30 minutes out, 30 minutes back. And it was actually fantastic. And literally by the time we got home, I was like, oh, maybe I should have gone to school. And I said, no, we
Every
would
now and
not
then
have,
you can
yeah,
do
it's
that.
every now and then it's fine. But you would not have felt this way going straight to school. You feel this way now because you went out walking. We had a good conversation, right? We didn't solve the world's problems,
You just did
we
the human reset for the day.
exactly for the day. And, so that was fantastic. And, my daughter, she, has some struggles with anxiety when I travel. And
I
so
don't get that sense from her when she talks all that trash to me on text
well, it's
messages.
because she misses me.
Oh.
So, yeah, she's pretty badass. Let's be honest. But, I'm a pretty cool person. So I get to have an anxiety when I'm not around,
I got you.
So, I had a big trip coming up and I'd been home for a while. And sometimes that's a struggle. And I said, you know what? Let's go. We're going to go work out. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to walk. And so we made that her new routine when I go out of town. Hey, when you start feeling that way, go hit the treadmill, go, do
Yeah,
some of the
exercise
dance,
is
right?
one of the things. It's funny because I can't wait for Jesse to get on because I used to pound Jesse in the face all the time he's a monster of a man. I'm like, how come you're not out doing this and that? And now he does it. you couldn't stop him. It's not
Yeah.
only does he not need my motivation, I could not stop him. He hits the gym every day. And
Yep.
he said something, he goes, "Hey, I hate admitting this to you, but you're right. The more I work out, the more energy I have for the day."
So true.
Well, there's 3 things I've seen in everybody that's ever worked for me that is not happy. Okay, normally that's like, everyone suffers from elements of depression. I mean, there are parts of human nature that we all can relate to in depression, anxiety, and fear. We live in an environment where most of the shit that we see on the media is based on a propaganda of
Yep.
fear. So, I mean, I could tell how messed up some people are based on how much they follow mainstream media. If they follow mainstream media, they're typically the most concerned about life all the time. But the 3 things that have always been the most consistent, and that's for anybody that's listening right now that wants to be a better whatever, including professional data center expert. The 3 things that most those unproductive and least valuable or least productive people that we have in our circles, they tend to not work out. So not working out is probably the most detrimental thing you could do to your body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Part 2 is they don't eat well. Okay. And when I say eat, I mean they probably are consuming things too that they shouldn't be. Not just like I'm not eating enough, or I'm eating the wrong shit, or I'm drinking the wrong stuff. And by the way, I'm describing myself. And part 3 is they don't create enough urgency behind the amount of rest they need.
Mm.
Rest is more important. I mean, I used to consider myself like I came from the submarine community where I worked 100 hours a week in port. And when I was deployed, it was normally north of 288 days a year. And in the times of year on deployment, it's not uncommon to go easily 20 hours without sometimes sitting down, right? Maybe you sat down to eat in that period, but you're on station, deployed, doing things. You're working a very intense workstation. So I got good at being like, man, I'm the king of deprivation. I don't even need sleep. If I get 4 hours of sleep a day, now if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm a mess, right? So
Same.
my output and productivity is massively increased on days that I work out, on days that I eat better, and on days that I rest better. And it's funny how one thing ties to the other. Normally, if I work out first thing in the morning, my body rejects the desire to have anything that's unhealthy. It just kind of knows. So then I'm only craving things that are healthy for me. And then, by the way, because I've worked out and I had a full day of work where I was more productive because I was jamming, when it goes time, like I have zero problem sleeping. In fact, there's almost like a button on my ass when I sit down on a bed and lay down. It's like someone has to check the oxygen in the room to figure out if I just died. But I don't stop until it's ready to shut
Yeah.
down. And when I shut down, I go down hard, right? So those 3 things are the common things I've found in people that are the most unproductive and their output lacks. It's because they don't work out, they don't eat or drink well, and they don't put rest as a priority.
Mhm.
I mean, do you agree with any of those
Oh,
things?
100%. And like growing up, my dad, works out every day, if not every other day, always ate healthy, never had fried food, never saw my dad drink an alcoholic beverage my entire life
Oh, wow.
growing up, like only ate chicken, no red meat. So like I had that as a role model, growing up. Now, did I follow it? No. I mean, I was that kid that always was like, you say do this, I'm gonna do this. So it took me,
Well, there's a
a
lot of
while.
things that are cool. When you're young, booze is cool. When you're young, cigarettes and all the fun shit that makes you feel like an adult are cool. And we do stupid shit when we're young, and we get older with
We're
worse
like, "Oh,
habits.
yeah, we were actually talking about this at lunch with the girls today, and we're like, the frontal lobe was not formed yet, and that's where the decision making, happens. But, so I had all of that as a role model, right? So it wasn't like I wasn't
But were
brought up
you
that way.
but you were teaching that to your kids now?
Now I'm teaching it to my kids, and, we eat out maybe once a week now. Saturday nights or Sunday nights, we'll go out with my parents and, sometimes my sister and her
Sure.
girls. But, we're cooking at home. And Kirk, I told you I hate cooking.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember
right? Like,
you
I
once said that was
hate
the
it.
part that you were not looking forward to the
Yes.
most.
Like, that was like the worst, And I was like, I hate cooking because, like, I don't like touching raw meat. Like, that is like something that really
You got
bothers me.
issues.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast about Jen's issues, but that was one of the things. But when my kids were like, "Mom, this is the best food," it was like, "Oh man, like it is making a difference to them." And now, like last night, I had a meeting that went, later, and my daughter had basketball, so I was like, "I don't have time to cook dinner." I said, "Mackenzie, who's 11. I was like, "Can you make spaghetti and meatballs for you and your brother? Because your brother's got tryouts." Like, and so like, she's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So like, they are learning how to do these
Yeah.
things, and you know, son will be off to college in a few years. My daughter's at least trying to teach him how to make chicken nuggets in the air fryer. So like, he's a little closer, but you know, they love when when I'm cooking it, at home, and that maybe why Mackenzie likes you a little bit because,
'Cause of
now
cooking.
mom's cooking it. I wouldn't go that
'Cause
far.
she gets to eat
Because
healthy.
now mom makes healthy food at home. And, so I wouldn't say that it's something I love, but I am beginning to enjoy it a little more.
So how did you keep I mean, look, when the kids aren't watching, no one's holding you accountable, it's cold outside, how do you keep the momentum going?
Because I wanna do it for me, right? Like, what was the motivation? Yes, my kids are watching, I wanna be around for them, all of that stuff, but really, when it boils down to it, it is for me, right? Because I can't be who I am unless, I am living these healthier lifestyles or growing, as a person, as an employee, as a daughter, as a mother. So all of those pieces all kind of boil down to me. Like, am I happy? Am I going to be able to continue on? So yeah, there are definitely those days. But one of the things I found is if I work out first thing in the morning, I do not have time, or capacity to make up an excuse why I can't.
Yeah, yeah,
And
it's
so
easy to
like
wake
that's
up.
my biggest thing. Like if I don't do it first thing in the morning, it's
Wha
probably not going to happen.
One thing that the most successful people on this earth all have in common is the ability to wake up closer to 5:30 in the morning than the rest of the population on this earth, right? And that's where that's your hour. Like, I don't even check emails until probably 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm up every morning at dark 30.
Yep.
Whatever I'm doing it. Uh, and it's the days that I don't do it are the days that I struggle the most,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
And, like, there's gonna be exceptions, days that I'm on a plane for 18 hours or 12 hours and shit,
That
but,
was
like
this morning. I'll be
yeah,
honest.
yeah, there's that, Texans don't really like Ohio people very much. We kinda tax it by making it really hard to
Yeah.
fly into
My
Texas from
flight
a
was 5:30. I left
You're
my house at
welcome.
3:30.
Yep,
All for you, Kirk.
you're welcome. Well, listen, this is because you need to let that live light shine,
Yeah.
right? So I get to see the coolest parts of you, and I get the front row seats of yous and the Jessies of the world because Jesse's just as inspiring. I mean, like
I know he and I were talking actually yesterday
oh,
about this.
yeah?
Yeah, a little bit.
He's at a whole nother level now,
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
but it's not because I was ragging on him and shit. That is a very driven person. He's driven by the same thing you are, which is the ability and desire to be a good role model for his children.
Yeah.
And that's what we as parents want to be doing, right? So like I am I had this podcast, The Human Reset, because two people that I truly care about, you and Jesse, and it could not, you guys come from the same market, so you guys have the same circumstances of life growing
Yeah.
up in the Midwest. But you guys both have completely different circumstances of life now.
Yeah.
But they're all so relatable, right? There's someone here that's listening that's they're men or women, they're gonna relate to the things that you're talking about. And the same will be for those that may not be able to relate to you, they'll hopefully relate to Jesse. That way we're covering the full 360 of this industry. Because everyone in this industry is important to this industry right now. Maybe there's some pieces of shit out in this industry, there always is. But a majority of but the majority of people that are here, this is not a mainstream sport.
No.
They got here and they chose to stay here instead of going into some other form of industry. They realize that this industry is transforming society. And technology has played such a massive impact on our ability to become healthier. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
We're the ones building the technology stacks that provide the
I am
technology.
adding to data centers every time I'm checking those calories and counting those stuff.
People don't realize that we would not have this level of transparency into our health now if it wasn't for social media.
Yep.
I believe this was the first social media election, although we've had social media for years. It's the first time where social media outweighed mainstream media
Yeah.
and its ability to influence the populace.
I think the younger generation that was able to vote in this election, they don't watch the news, right? They are solely doing podcasts or looking at, X or,
It's on a rectangle. That's
Yeah.
the only thing they follow. They're not
Yep.
watching. Look, mainstream news is going away because the people that follow them are all dying. It's all baby boomers.
Yep.
Gen Xers now replace them. They don't give two shits about mainstream media, right? And I think that the technology that once helped us become sicker, right? Maybe by releasing and adopting so much technology without understanding the unintended consequences of it, we gave up privacy, we gave up security, we gave up things that a greater level of awareness, and we allowed ourselves to kind of, in many ways, become very addicted to technology. But now there's a reckoning where, like, too much of a good thing, it's Goldilocks, too hot, too cold before it's just right. And we're moving in the fifth industrial revolution into the just right phase, which is where people like you and I that used to go to, how many years have we been partying through this industry?
More than I'd like to admit.
But now, I mean, have we missed fun?
No.
I have partied at every.
It's a different type of fun, I think, anymore, right? It's a
It
more
is.
like when I was at, PTC this year, I went out still.
Yeah.
I mean, I was tired because I still got up and did my walks, but
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking, so was actually okay. Like I may have
I
a
fake
drink
drink.
or nothing.
I
Yeah,
just
like
have, I order like whatever you'd
club
want,
soda
and then
and
I
lime.
just tell them to make it non-alcoholic.
Yep, exactly. So I think the relationships that we have or the socializing that we have is more intentional, um, and closer. So, like, I had way better conversations, while I'm not drinking or, out there just, while other
I
people
still
are hammered.
drink. I
But,
just
like,
don't do that much. Yeah.
it's not to that level, right? So, like, I'm not if I am, like, hammered like that, like, I'm not gonna remember what conversation I had, or I'm not gonna make a good impression, on whoever I'm
Well,
talking
we
to.
do just as
Yeah,
many healthy hours as happy hours now.
exactly.
Did you come to our, we did the Pilates and the yoga.
Yes, I did, at DCAC, I
Yeah.
did. I didn't do it at, PTC.
At PTC, yeah, we
Yeah, I
had
had a
a
meeting.
Navy SEAL workout with sugar cookies and all that shit. It was awesome.
I heard it was awesome. I saw the pictures. You had a huge turnout for that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look,
That's
I
good.
think just as many people that I think we all wanna go fun and go deep in the paint
Yeah.
on the evenings, and I wanna have a good time too, but I don't wanna miss the workouts at 6 in the morning, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So, I think that right now, there's people that are starting off the year, this is the first quarter, men or women, and they're sitting here listening, and I think somebody's gonna resonate with your story. They're gonna hear this going into the second quarter, and I'm like, use March as a time to listen to Jen's story, listen to Jesse's story, and ask questions. They can reach out to you,
Yeah,
they can reach out
absolutely.
to whoever, and start figuring out how you wanna reinvent yourself. It's just a decision. People just have to decide, like,
It's a choice, and you have to make it for yourself. It can't be doing it, to impress somebody else, right? Like, otherwise you're not gonna stick with it, right? And you have to have high standards with all of it, right? With yourself.
if you could, let's say, watch this. There are times where I'll make the leaders of my team, uh, write me they'll do a 30-second to 1-minute video message to themselves in 1 month from now.
Mhm.
"Hey," I do it. "Hey, Kirk, in 1 month from now, you're gonna do this and this and this and this." And that's no one's telling me what to say. This is me
Yeah.
self-imposing whatever shit I'm gonna commit myself to for that month.
Is this similar to, like, the journaling? Maybe
I
this is a
do.
better
Big fan of the
idea for
journaling.
me than the journaling because I can't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
they don't
tried.
they don't
Like,
teach cursive writing in Ohio, no, but my thing like, I journal because I'm a big fan of I believe if I can't write it down, then I haven't thought about it well
yeah.
enough. But at the same time, writing video, like doing videos to
Mhm.
yourself, if you could go back to DCAC 2023, after having done that walk, go up to your room and you could write, or you could just do, "Hey, Jen, in 2 years from now, this is what's up." What would you have told yourself? In a year from now, this is what's up. What would you have told yourself? What would you tell yourself if you got to do
Probably
it?
not Probably not where I'm at. I probably would have in 2023, that September, I probably would not have set my standards high enough for a change. I probably would not have, because
Played it
at
too
that point,
close,
right, I would
too
have played it
safe.
too safe. And I think that it's probably good that I didn't limit myself, right? Where I was like, "Hey, just figure it out." Like, here, just do the steps and see where it gets you. Because I think that I probably would have potentially limited myself. I always tell my kids, high standards, low expectations, right? And that way you're not
Da
disappointed.
damn. I think that
But
people are inherently born and conditioned like that to, high standard, low expectation, and I kinda look at that as something that keeps the item in which you want to possess the most the furthest away. That's why I always use the analogy. I'm like, you kinda almost have to take the binoculars and flip them the other way. You think you're using them the right way, but you're really seeing something. You're like, "Man, that's pretty far, and I can't get there." And then when you flip it, you're like, "Shit, I'm almost there to touch it,"
yep.
right? And then you just have to kind of view the optics and how you view things every day differently.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself today? And maybe it's something to think about, but, like, what would you want to do to continue on this growth path? Because it never ends.
Yeah, it doesn't end. I would definitely tell myself, like, stick with the consistency and the challenges. Like, and I think that's like the big thing, right? Like, you have to stay consistent,
You gotta
do
be
the work,
uncomfortable.
right? but challenge yourself. It's not okay just to stay on that same path, right? Like sometimes you're just going to have to take the challenge of the steps, right?
Yeah.
And do the stair climber, right? Like challenge yourself. Don't get comfortable. Step outside the comfort zone.
So that's great advice, and for everybody listening, you should listen to her advice because she's walking the walk and doing the talk. But let me ask you a question. When you started doing this and you started making those changes, did you see the changes immediately?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it depends on what changes we're talking about, right? I think that the changes from the walking and like having that exercise routine, there was pretty immediate satisfaction in I was in a better mood and I had more energy. So that was more immediate. The results of the walking or the working out, yeah, that's going to take time. That's not an immediate fix. But that's also not the main goal. For me, it wasn't, right?
What
It
was the
was
main
just
goal? Yeah.
to be healthier and, not wearing the heart monitor, the heart's looking good, all of those kind of things. Those were the long term, but they were not immediate. We're a year and a half later, from some of those challenges that now those are not, concerns, for me. So it's staying consistent and no, they're not gonna be immediate, and you're gonna sometimes have to step up your game to get better results as well. And that's physically or mentally, right?
Tie it together for people that are listening because they don't realize we keep talking about the mental, like the emotional and the spiritual health improvements is what we're
Mhm.
talking about.
Yeah.
But then we talk about how we walked or how we do those
Yeah.
things, and maybe people don't understand why we do that and how the physical aspect of what we're trying to improve in us. Like I wish that I knew a better way to make my mind stronger and healthier and harder than exposing myself to the things that are painful and uncomfortable to me. But I haven't figured that out yet.
I don't think there is a way to train, right? Like you have to go through those challenges. It's kind of like when you're working. And I guess maybe this will tie it, maybe it won't, right? When you're working out, right? The next day you're sore because your muscles have broken down, right? But the only way that they're going to get stronger and larger are by rebuilding. But you got to break it down first and then rebuild it. Like that's how your brain works too. That's how your emotional range works. So you're going to have to go through those hard times as a practice to keep strengthening. So I
It
look at it as a
calluses the
practice.
brain, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
It calluses the hands, it calluses the brain. You just kinda get used to what's uncomfortable, and then one day what's uncomfortable becomes comfortable, and then the emotional range continues to iterate and evolve. The reason why we started with walking, and then you started getting into other shit.
Yeah.
You started walking with your weights, and people are now in our groups, they all have weighted vests or they have, other things that they've tailored onto their shit, but the reason that the physical challenge has to be present is because it forces the brain. You don't when you plant a tree, you do not get fruit from it the next day or the next
No.
week, right? So it forces people that live in today's environment that are so easily able to be satisfied immediately by something from technology. Hey, I'm not happy with what I set. I'm going to go look for that differently. I'm going to get ChatGPT to write. But you could get instantaneous results.
Immediate. Yep.
We don't get that in these changes, right? And it took me 30, 40 days before I started seeing any shift in my body in a way in which I'm like, hey, this is working. But in that time frame, I had to not think about measuring the results and I had to focus only on the journey. So
Yes.
many people focus on the destination, like, it's too far away. I'm not going to try.
Yeah, and that was one thing I had already fully accepted that I wasn't going to have the immediate results from in that standpoint, right? One of the things, we were told growing up all the time, right? Like it's like when you have to trim a bush back, right? Like when in the fall or spring, whatever, you trim it back, but in the spring that it comes back fuller, right? So you're going to have to go through setbacks or the challenges, right, of, being kind of brought down before you're going to kind of grow and, and be fuller. So you have to look at it from that standpoint, but you're gonna have to go through the process. And I would say, luckily for me, like that wasn't an issue, looking at it in my mind of saying, hey, like you're on a journey. We actually have no idea where we're going, like we are literally just gonna put in the work and
One day at a
see,
time.
yeah, we're gonna see where we end up, right? And I think for me it didn't limit me then, right? If I wasn't thinking about just the destination, I wasn't limited. I was like, all right, I'm going to, build myself physically. I'm going to build myself mentally. I'm going to build myself, spiritually. Like I'm going to make all of these changes and see where it puts me. And I think it's put me, so far in a really good spot. I've got a great job, got, a great group of people, around me, both, professionally and personally, and
So
it's really worked.
let's talk about that a little bit more since I want to scratch the pain a little bit on the professional side again,
Yeah.
right? Because people are like, why do I care about all these people's human problems? Because you all have them. We all have them. And you're either ignoring them. If you're listening to this podcast, you're full of shit and you're ignoring them and making bullshit excuses for yourself. And that's unfortunate because you need to surround yourself with people that have a higher standard. You become a product of that environment real quick, and they're going to give you lessons, right?
Yeah.
The best thing that like the strongest and the healthiest people I've ever met, all they want to do is help others do the same because there's an amount of joy that comes with those things that you can't give to people. You have to earn it, right? And you want to give people the opportunity to earn that shit too, right? But on a professional basis, you said that people around you noticed because you started by creating healthier boundaries for yourself.
Yes.
And that's, dude, good for you. Everybody has a need to tighten up their boundaries, right?
Mhm.
I do, you do, I mean, we all have bad
Yeah.
habits. Just because we're talking about this doesn't mean that we have this shit all figured out, right? We're students of life on the journey. But did people notice the output differences, the productivity differences on a professional level? Were you able to
Yes.
engage with team members? So this is what's going to tie it back to the leaders. There are people that are listening to this. There are chiefs in this world and there are Indians. And at some stage, every chief was an Indian first. And a lot of people are like, I went to school here and and the reality is you had to work your way through this shit.
Absolutely.
And it's no different than any other of the circumstances in life. So, you know, I'm telling this story because there are leaders that are sitting down looking at members of their team and they want more output and productivity from them and they don't know how to get it. And I'm like, maybe you stop trying to make them a better subject matter expert and you start asking them how you can help them get healthier.
It's funny you say that. So when I was going through, the growth here, professionally, it was interesting for me to kind of sit back and watch, right? And I'm saying actually watch because I knew I was going through these changes, of developing myself and really, digging into things that I probably wasn't good at, but I wanted to better myself or, how I presented, documents, whatever, whatever I was working on, from that standpoint. It was interesting to see, the quote unquote leaders, right? That I was working, with the ones that wanted to, see the growth. They were happy for the growth, were very encouraging and were really impressed, right? And we're like, yeah, let's go. The ones that were threatened by it,
The jealous spirits.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very naysay. And, it was what I
They
had
project bullshit on you because they feel
yes.
guilty because they
Yeah.
didn't have it.
Yeah. And so it was very interesting and you could see like, okay, this is a good leader, right? That's like, hey, yeah, like let's grow you here. Let's take the time. I
Yeah.
see that you're putting in the work. Let me invest some, time and energy into you as well. And let's make you the best version of yourself, right? Professionally. And then you could see the leaders that, weren't actually leaders, right? They were management positions. They weren't leaders. And so I
Managers
could really
manage a
say,
process,
yeah.
leaders lead.
And it was really interesting to see that. And I remember the first, couple, meetings that I had where it was really starting to show through on that. And I was like, that's sad for you.
You're outgrowing them.
Yes.
It's like
And
a Peloton.
yeah,
People fall out the back of the Peloton because
all the
you
time.
keep speeding up.
Yeah. And so it was like, that's sad. And, I hope that those people, right, that, were like, you know what? Like, that's something we should change. We should grow our people that are really putting in the effort. Um, you know, Godspeed, hope they do. But the people, that were like, you know what? I see you doing the work. Like I'm gonna invest that in you. Like those people are good leaders and they're gonna do great things and they've already inspired, a million other people, even since then. And so, I appreciate those people that, were willing to put that in. And, then stepping back made me want to invest that into the people that, I could help grow. And I did, right? I mean, either pulled them along to 30 for 30 or, helped them, look at, different options, from their own professional development. By no means am I an expert, but like you can bounce ideas off each other, right? Like you can be the same level and still help people grow.
Look, there's people in my life that disappeared immediately when I started getting healthier.
Mhm.
It wasn't because I removed them. It's because they didn't want no part of that. They're like, "Oh, shit. I don't need to be around O'Fell. He's just gonna hold me accountable. He's gonna How many years did I chip away at you to jump out of a helicopter, right? But,
3.
like, if I care enough about people, there's
Yep,
no greater love than that level
yep,
of accountability, right? And I wanna see the best in people. I think most people do. It's part of human nature,
yeah,
right? But when you're around certain people, they have to want to get better. Some people are like, "I ain't about that yet. I need" like, when my kids would be mad when they were younger, whether it was after a soccer game, after a wrestling match, or after a grade, or after
yeah,
whatever, I would give them an allotted amount of time and say, "Hey, listen, you have an hour. You get to go bitch and moan for an hour. You could cry and you could scream and you go have a fist seat. You know, you could have your own little tantrum, but when that hour is over, it's done. You don't go back to that bullshit ever again." And I would assign time to people to kind of go through and check that box.
mhm,
But if you don't assign a finite amount of time to that, the people get stuck in that purgatory a lot because it's
yeah,
such a comfortable place. And what I've learned was people didn't want to be around me because I'd be like, "Hey, bitch, I'm not drinking that tonight," or "Hey, no, dude, I'm not partying until 11. It's 10 o'clock. I'm out."
yes,
Or and I learned that some people just remove themselves because they don't want the party to end right now. Because and I was that person too one day. You were that
I
person
was
one
that
day.
person.
And we all are that person. That's a phase of the journey. And what happens is there's so many awesome distractions in this industry, in this life, that I have about a million reasons. All I need is one reason to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and go work out.
Yeah,
I've learned that I don't have to make 1,000 decisions. All I have to do is make sure that I can wake up when my alarm goes off, which is when I don't want it to. And if I get up and I keep moving, then everything else from my day falls into place.
mhm,
And I challenge people. I'm like, give yourself 5 days. And if you don't like it, then quit. No one quits after 5 days because everyone's like, dude, I found the journey of self improvement both addicting and
yeah,
infectious, meaning I could not stop trying to level up in every aspect of what I do, which
mhm,
means I continuously put myself in situations in which I can never feel more uncomfortable than I do. And I'm humbled by that, right? Like I'm in the fetal position once a month. Like, am I the right CEO? Am I the right this? Like, holy shit. But I do that knowing that I built a battleship for a business, which is not designed to be moored to a pier. It's meant to be in harm's way. And I'm going
mhm,
to be driving that ship in a way to bring good. And I know it's going to be at risk, but it's hard. And I like to think that uh, I'm hard upstairs, right? But it is really hard for people to pivot, right? And there are people right now that are listening that they know everything that we're saying.
yeah,
There's some really freaking, this industry does not lack genius and intelligence. But they just are like, give me another quarter to wrap this shit up. I got to get some more
yeah,
partying on my. Does that? And I was that guy too. I was like, I remember standing on the top of some rooftop thing, and I was jumping into some pool. People were like, hey, and I
great
was like,
decision.
what could go wrong? And I remember thinking, I go, all right, this will be the last time I do it, but I'm doing this one too. But like,
Yeah,
I honestly had to start selling myself. I had to be like, okay, it's February. I'm going to give myself to the end of whatever, and then I'm going to start. You know what I'm saying? But I had to start really putting together roadmaps for
yeah.
myself. What do you do now to keep yourself accountable? What are you doing to stay
I
on the
think
journey?
I'm just addicted to it at this
Yeah,
point, right? Like I have a very addictive, personality. So like when I get stuck on something, like I am
locked
all
on.
like I'm locked on. Like
Yeah,
I get addicted. Like I kind of like get a little stir crazy. Like I'm like really upset that I like didn't go work out this morning.
yeah,
I mean that would be physically impossible. I literally got up at 1:30
yeah,
to get ready and fly down. So physically impossible. But like I'm so addicted to it
yeah.
of, feeling like the best version, of myself, both, mentally, physically, professionally. Um, that it's for me right now, like,
Is it infectious to others? Like that's what I'm
yes,
saying. I
yeah,
was so
yeah,
into it that people decided I don't want to be around Ophel because he's going to try to commit me to being a better person myself, and I'm not ready for that. Or others would be like, "Hey, dude, I'm listening,"
yeah.
and they were right there in orbit with me the whole time. Be
I
like,
was able to have people go, PTC, like go walk, in the
"Yeah,
morning. And, I had some of my best, business conversations. Be like, hey, I'm gonna go for a walk. Like,
yeah,
you wanna join? Yeah, actually, you know what? Like, yeah, let's go have our conversation, there. And then, I would say that just all of the people, like, what I used to travel with, like, they'd be like, "Hey, I brought my walking shoes. Are you still doing your 30-30 for 30?" And they, were either involved in it or not, some of the people weren't, but they would still go. Like, they were really kind of driven by the idea, the camaraderie, the bond that it, was bringing, and so that helps as a company too, right?
yeah,
When your company is physically active, right, and healthy, they kind of bond over that. They're gonna
It
be
brings
more
that shared
productive.
any form of shared suffering brings people
Yeah,
together, and compromising, sacrificing, and putting out or working through pain is something that definitely will bring teams together,
yeah,
right? We see it in sports teams like the Miracle in a movie. You see it in the military at the most elite levels. Um, Going through the part in which you're kind of you're doing housekeeping. I always used to like the books that I was giving you.
mhm,
People would be like, "What books do you have?" I'm like, I call them housekeeping books. Like those are home improvement books. Those
yeah,
are books that aren't really to help you DIY your bathroom.
yeah,
Those are like, how do I not get mad at my if you're anyway? I don't want to get mad at my wife. I don't want to get mad at my husband. I don't want to get mad at my son. I don't want to get mad at my daughter, my boss. W- We all have that shit,
yeah.
right? So walk me like take me through now, if you can, some of the things that you learned, some advice. Like if let's say I'm like where you were 2 years ago, and I'm doesn't matter, male, female, and here I am I'm like shit. I've been stagnant. I can promise you right now, 30% of this industry is stagnant. There are people that are working in jobs right now. They should no doubt be in this industry.
Yes.
But because of whatever, it could be because of the circumstances of their personal life, they have no choice but to stay in that position, or because the fear of the unknown is worse than the fear of the known, so they stay where they're
Yes.
at because they'd rather be that. But what would be your advice to you or another person like yourself that has been in the game? You're a pro, like you. It's not like the shit I was telling you. You
I'm
said
old. I've been here a long time,
she is old, super old.
but not as old as Kirk.
That's true too. But like your father was a great role model.
Yeah,
It's not like you didn't know
yeah.
right from wrong. It's just something had to hit where you're like, you know what, I'm going to go this path. So what would be your advice? And what were some of the other things? Like, what have you expanded on? Like, I'll tell you, like, I just started a new thing today for the first time called methylene blue. And I don't,
Sounds dangerous when
yeah,
it
yeah, I
starts.
don't know. I'll be pissing blue for all I know. But like, I'm constantly adding
Yeah.
something to, like, every month I'll add, like I was going through all kinds of shit with cedar. So I used mullein for a month or so.
Mhm.
But I'm constantly like adding little things to my lifestyle I'm tweaking my vitamins or adding something here, or it's just never ending. It's just like a nonstop effort of optimization of your human biology, right? So like what are some of the things that you discovered? What are some of the things that, you keep doing, things that you stop doing, things you need to start
Yes.
doing?
So let me kind of roll back to a little bit what you were, asking earlier was what is the advice that I would give, somebody else?
Yeah.
And one of the things that, I've been telling a lot of people that have come to me, right? Like, hey, like I've noticed, right? I tell them like you got to stick with it. Like you have to know your worth, right? And I think that's a big thing why people get stagnant because they're just like, and they're not willing to challenge their own worth, right? And so I tell them, challenge yourself on that, know what you're worth, and believe that you can do you can do this, right? Like whether it be the physical part, but you have to do more than just one of those pillars, right? You have to do the physical, you have to do the mental, you have to do the emotional, the professional. Like you have to, it's all of it, right? Like otherwise you're gonna have a lopsided house, right? You have to have it all working together. So that was, one of the things that, I told people. And like give yourself grace, right? Like you're gonna have
Setbacks.
yeah, you're gonna have setbacks and that's okay.
Not even Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth, home run record, strikeout record.
Yes.
People don't realize like Kobe Bryant missed this many shots, didn't just make that many shots, right? So you got to swing. You got
Yeah.
to swing forward, and you got to set hard goals. Goals that are like you said. I think if you were to be asked early on in your earlier testament to yourself and where you'd be in a year from now, you would have set too low of goals.
Yeah.
Today, you would be hopefully setting bigger goals.
Be setting the impossible.
You
And
have
that's
to.
okay, right? And that's great, right? Like if you set, super hard goals and you understand that they're super hard and they may not be obtainable, but at least you're working, 10 times harder to get to it, right? And then you'll fall, somewhere in between and, you still made improvement.
When you're
Don't
on
sell
that,
yourself short.
well, I think that there's a lot of people who are stuck in a victim mentality of life.
Yeah.
My parents were shit. My teachers were shit. My coaches were shit. My last managers are shit. This manager's are shit.
Excuse.
Like the beauty about your story and Jesse's is if you asked both of you what started you on your commitment to your journey, it was simple. It was your children. And what kept you there was the love that you had for yourself and you
Mhm.
want to make yourself happy. But what started it was something on the outside, paternal, maternal instinct, fraternal. And then what happened was is what you discovered was this thing that you loved the version of yourself that you became as a byproduct of this, and you stayed with it. And it is a good thing to teach your kids.
Yeah.
I'm telling that story for that narrative because everybody that is a leader that's listening, they're in charge of other souls,
Yep.
and they have the same responsibility to those souls as a parent would have to their children, and that is to set a better example. What I've learned is, as leaders, if you can't lead yourself, you're never going to lead
100%.
others. And if you're a leader and you're looking at somebody that clearly can't lead themselves, you should not put them in a position to lead others.
Correct. It can ruin, teams, it can ruin
Yeah.
companies, and we've all seen it, right? No matter what industry you're in, you've probably have seen that, right? Where you have a bad leader, and like we said, they're not leaders, they're managers then at that point, right? And people leave managers or leaders, whatever you want to say about it. They don't leave companies, right? Like that's not why people leave. It is
Bad
bad
person in
management.
charge.
Yeah.
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 And
They'll kill a culture.
yeah, I think, man, that's a whole nother podcast
Yes.
to try to, but it's important because that's what we're
It
talking
is,
to.
yeah.
We're
It's a people industry, right?
we're in the primary line of business we use to generate revenue, regardless of what you do in this industry. If you're not a data center owner operator or an enterprise end user, it's labor and services, delivery of goods. And it means that you need more out of your people. So you better be paying attention because you have to hold yourself to a standard so you could lead to a better standard, right?
Mhm.
And people don't know where to start from. I mean, I was lucky. I was immersed around a bunch of people that cared about other humans and would be like, "Hey, by the way, just like you, if I asked them a question, they would never not have an answer for me." But they weren't standing there fucking, like, "Hey, bring it in. Let's tell you what's up for today. This is the lesson of the day." It was nothing like that. It was I had to go be like, "Hey, man, how do I get that? Or how do I become more like that?" Right? And I think that just talking about it more and unpackaging human elements will allow others to go begin the journey of their own human reset.
Mhm.
What percentage of people do you think that are listening to this podcast are unhappy with the circumstances of their lives today?
I would probably say 60%.
I would say it's more than half,
Yeah,
right? And that's unfortunate, but it's also fixable. And for those that are
it
listening,
is.
now they kind of understand, right? Like you have, this will be your third podcast by the time it hits the street on the human reset, and they will literally get to listen to your tone, the inflection in your voice is different in each of these.
Yeah.
Just your confidence alone. I mean, uh, I think others should be inspired by that. I think others should be inspired to know that if you can do it, they can do it too. And there should be dudes that can listen to it from the optics of a male perspective
Yeah.
as well when I bring on Jesse, right? But we're all in some.
We're all people, right? Like people have struggles,
Yeah.
right? Like men, women, moms, dads,
A
right?
lot of
Like
human,
it's.
a lot of mental challenges with people, right?
Are
I
you
mean,
saying I'm mentally challenged on this? A little bit?
everybody that's a Buckeye fan seems to have
Everyone
it.
that's a Buckeye fan.
There's just, I think people just, they don't know where to begin. So they
Yeah.
are waiting, they're praying and they're just waiting for shit to happen. And hope is their strategy, right? And the reality is nothing's ever going to come. You're downrange. No one's coming to rescue you. You got to rescue yourself. And podcasts like this, hopefully, are a good jump start to those things,
Yeah.
right? Because
You can listen to us. You don't just have to watch us while you're driving. So
Yeah.
please don't watch.
Yeah, you don't need
You
to.
can listen.
But what are some of the things that you're doing now from the last time we started? You were really focused on the fitness side because it was making the mind disciplined.
Yep.
When you have big habits, when you have huge goals,
Mhm.
those goals, the highest and the most lofty of goals, always require the greatest of habits. And the only way to establish habits that are that healthy for you is you must have discipline, right? It's not like you can't have a coach on you every day. You have to get yourself going, right? We're pros, we're professionals,
Mhm.
and we have to think professionally, right? So, what are some of the things that, like, when you started, it was fitness and you were changing the way you were really not, it wasn't like I'm cooking. You're like, I'm changing my whole relationship with food.
Yes.
And,
I'm
and it,
tracking the shit out of that.
yeah, but when you have a relationship with the food that you eat, either because you hunted it, you fished it, you shopped for it, you cooked it, you prepped it before you ate it, then it's different than just going to DoorDash.
Yeah.
Where you're like, that's fuel. This is like, hey man, this shit's gonna make me healthier and stronger. I gotta make sure I have the right portion. Did I put the
Yep.
right shit in there? But you do eat differently when you cook differently, right? And you were so focused on the fitness side and the diet side that those things were really helping you establish your consistency of your habits. You were establishing and growing discipline through the 30 for 30 and the change of your diet and the change of your reading life cycle but those habits and the consistency of those habits are what allowed you to have these major changes, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that you keep throwing into your lexicon that allow you to, like, I work out with a guy 4 days a week at a minimum,
Mhm.
right? Just one dude. And that dude, I could do the same workout with him and we'll never do the same workout twice. And I asked him, I go, hey, let me ask you, man, because I'm not going to go and work out and remember all these things.
Mhm.
And I go, why do you do something different every time you touch a muscle group? He goes, because you got to trick the muscle. If you work out the same way all the time, then the muscle learns that and
Stagnant.
it'll find a way to, the body's designed, like running is a great way. When you run, you engage your core, so you pronate or get,
Yeah.
and it's because you want to run and get the highest level of output with the least amount of labor or effort possible. So it's just in our human biology, right? So my thing is I'm constantly surprising the muscle and I have to trick the muscle. I have to constantly change my diet. Constantly, once every 6 weeks, I change an element of my
Mhm.
sleeping patterns. I change an element of my drinking patterns. Like how I went through 6 months where if I am going to drink, I'm only drinking tequila. Now and when it's cold, I drink nothing but bourbon or some shit, right? But uh, I have to mix my stuff up all the time so I don't get stagnant. Every quarter at a minimum, I'm reinventing some of my workouts, things, changing my diet every 3 months. What are you doing now? And what's the advice that you have for those that are listening, where they can start and how it keeps on going?
So, ironically, yesterday I just went and met with a wellness coach
Yeah.
and a doctor just to, make sure that, from the, exercise standpoint and from the nutrition standpoint, that I'm getting all the right stuff in there, right? Like making sure that, my electrolytes are, at the right levels and, all of the other, aspects of all whatever blood
Yeah.
work that they, are pulling and will have the results, whatever. But it was like, I felt like I wasn't, expanding. I was like, "Huh, well, let's check these other boxes," right? Like,
Yeah.
let's make sure that we are hitting, even though I'm cooking and eating healthy, am I eating all of the right,
Are you eating
things,
organic? Are you
Yeah.
taking all these pesticides and
Yeah,
yeah.
and like, am I taking enough multivitamins? Am I, doing all of this? Like, is my body processing it all, the right way? And so, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna challenge myself or, just kinda double check, like, this is my next step, of, being the best version, of myself, like, and having the, wellness coach 'cause I track all of my stuff, in the MyFitness app or Pal or whatever, whatever it is, right? But, that can only be so accurate. So I was like, "You know what? Let's do the full panel. Let's, do that." And then they're like, "Well, let's also do a sleep study." And I was like, "Oh dear God."
Oh,
Like,
yeah, I
okay.
did the
Yeah,
same.
did you?
Don't do that. I did a sleep study one. I was like, I'm ashamed of myself, but I'm way better than I was in the military. But like, if they grade you, like, on a percentage of 1 to 100, they'll be like, congratulations, you're an 87% efficiency in your sleep. I never got that message, by the way. I was always like, hey, man,
Like,
you got an issue. Yeah.
you're not even good at sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. I toss and turn so much. I,
Uh-huh.
I credit that to the passion I have for what I do, where I'm just constantly, I don't ever shut my brain
Yeah.
off because I love what I do. I love it, but I have to figure out a way to sleep better. But every now and then I have to change my habits of sleep,
And
right?
I
So
thought I think I'm a good sleeper, at home, right? Like, my first night out on the road, like, I sleep like crap, right?
yeah,
Like, in the
everybody
hotel, but,
does.
like, at home, I was like, "No, like, I do great." She's like, you probably don't."
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like you." She's like,
Yeah.
"Your age." And I'm like, "Wow, we're going there." Like, okay. But, yeah, so, like, I'm taking those next steps,
Edibles.
no. Remember, I have an addictive personality. We are not testing that. But, I was like, ugh. So I had to take that to the next step, right? Because I was like, nothing's gonna change unless I do something about it.
Yeah,
And so that's my next step.
I love it. How has this journey been for you in the last since DCAC 2023 to now? I mean, nobody's the same. It's interesting because we lead companies, and most of the people listening to this are leaders of in business. They're in this industry, which is why they're probably listening to this. And and they don't reflect on the fact that they've like, how much different are you right now than you were 6 months ago?
Like, probably like a 180. From
Okay,
6 months ago, there's been a lot of growth.
so imagine where you're gonna be in 6 months from now. Now try to build a business around that. So we have employees, and they're the most kinetic and dangerous thing about a data center is not the energy source. It's always going to be the human resource, right?
Yeah.
And they all think differently. They all have a different emotional range. They all have different things that drive them. And then, by the way, we have a certain amount of people that just have mental health challenges
Yeah.
as well. And there's people that are truly battling PTSD or there's just things that happened long before they ever came to work for us that we have to deal with the circumstances of that. We don't even know what those things are most of the time because people,
Sometimes they don't know.
yep, that's true. Sometimes they don't just hide it, they just don't know about it themselves. So I think that we as leaders, we're not really in an age of industry where there's 500,000 people that are eligible to just jump into this industry and make a difference today. We're actually hundreds of thousands of people short in this
Yeah.
industry, and we're starving for talent. So we don't really have the ability to just let people go all the time. I mean, in construction right now, in our industry, how hard is it to get a job? There is so much pent up demand for what we
Yeah.
do that I hire like on average 15 people a month right now. I'll hire in March
That's
at
amazing,
least
by the way.
30, right? Well, it's the growth and how do I,
Yeah.
dude, it's amazing, but I have to figure out a way to do it at scale.
It's a tough problem to have.
Yeah, but what I want to do is I'm a technology incubator for labor. So if people come to work for me, if the average veteran has 3 jobs in the first 4 years, I want to hire that veteran because they could have 3 different jobs in this industry in 4 years and never change the jersey on the front of
Yeah.
their chest. They could go work in operations and go work on a data center operator side. They could go work in construction on phase 3. Maybe I could put them in commissioning. They could set up and sit down load banks. Maybe they're on the development side doing some of the things that we're doing to get
Yeah.
programs ready to launch. But either way, there's so many different careers they could have. They could work for us and never have to change. So that's why knowing that I'm creating an incubator for labor, I have to create leaders that are going to figure out what do we do when you have a misfit toy that's not working right. They weren't like that 6 months ago. We hired them for a
Yeah.
reason. They were great, but now they, just like what you said, are completely different. In many cases, the resources that I hire are 180 degrees different than what I need. My biggest problem is I have to hire people that I'm going to need in 5 years from now, not in 5 months or 5 quarters from now, right? So the playing the long game is the most strategic thing I could do. But if I'm bringing on people and then we outgrow them too fast, that's a problem. So we have to keep these people growing with us,
Yes.
or they will fall right out of the back end of our peloton. So I'm excited, and by the time this podcast comes out, there'll be some big announcements that we're doing on our end from a training perspective. Yeah, but I'm so invested into figuring out how do we coach and mentor and retain talent
Mm-hmm.
so that people don't show up to work with the bag of their own problems and their leaders are just ill-equipped to be able to deal with that. And now we could help that person become a greater contributor to what we're doing as a mission or a purpose as a business. And as a byproduct of those things, you're also helping them become better people.
Yeah.
So the health on the physical side, the mental side, emotional, I should say, instead of mental, but the spiritual side, focusing on those things, it starts with us, right? As
Mhm.
leaders of this industry or leaders of this business. And you work for a company that's emerging. I mean,
Yeah.
you've worked for large companies and now you're working for one of the coolest emerging data center companies right now, ClearArc.
Amazing people.
And look, they have the A team. They have so much talent from
They do.
the CEO all the way down. And you're going to have to be at your best to be able to play with those smaller groups that are coming in right now. They have all the growth momentum,
Yep.
right? Because they're hungry. They're not in a defensive posture like the publicly traded REITs are right now.
Yep.
And they're on a privately held island. They get to do a lot of more creative,
There's
cool
a lot.
things.
Yeah, you can be a lot more flexible and creative. Like, that's one of the reasons, I chose to go to CleanArc because, thought the team was fantastic.
Yes, powerhouse.
Super powerhouse, group over there. I loved the strategy. I loved what we were doing. I loved, the way they were, strategically planning, their next steps. And, so
And they've done it. You have look, Lindsay, the COO, Cyrus, you got Trout, who was, he's everything. He's GI, he
Yeah.
was digital, he was Vantage. So like you have you got Engler, guys that have been in this industry since the beginning of the ship, and too many other people like John
yeah,
stuff to count.
yeah,
But there's so much talent that we have to, for us to be competitive professionally. And I hope that more people take and look at themselves as professional athletes instead of professional data center people, because professional athletes have to take care of themselves all the time. Professional athletes are eating right, dieting right, making the sacrifices they need to be able to perform and put points on the board for their teams. And we need more of our professionals in this workspace to feel the same way. I think that there's an awakening because of technology in which
Yeah.
people are going to be able to do that. Plus, I hope that by me being able to give the industry someone inspiring like you or someone truly inspiring like Jesse as well, it'll help others come out of a rut, right? Because sometimes it just takes a spark and you never know who you're influencing or inspiring with the actions that you're doing one day over the next.
It's funny you say it too. Earlier, you were talking about retaining the employees. I think companies that recognize that, this is a fast growing industry and, it is hard to, grow when we don't have the human, aspect of we don't have enough people, right? And so keeping those good employees is so important. And I think companies that are doing the kind of the things that you're doing, growing your employees, that is, the number one way to keep employees is
Well,
by investing in the good talent.
I only got there from making years of mistakes, right? I've lost like number one priority, everybody in my company knows that the number one priority and the only goal I have right now is retention. And I failed at retention for the last 2 or 3 years of this company because I was focused on the upstream side where I'm like, dude, I'm hiring 5 people a month. Now I'm hiring 10. Now I'm hiring 15. What's that matter if I'm losing 4 or 5 a month? Right. So I was like,
You always lose the good ones, right? Like,
yeah, if
like
I can uninspire an A player
yeah,
in a minute by letting them watch me tolerate B
yep.
players, hire C
Yep.
players, and Chuck. So I have failed so many times in retention that this year my only focus was retention, which is why we focus so heavily on training.
Mhm.
But like, I don't care about hiring 10 or 15 or 30 people a month. Good. Good for them.
Mhm.
Good. What's that matter if I can't grow and retain them? So
Yes.
retention's the only thing
'Cause
that
it's
matters.
expensive.
Well, there's the only way to get value out of try to imagine like what Elon did when he put, the Model S out there. He was losing money on every one of them. And then, Tesla went to this other spectrum of value in terms of industry. And it wasn't he was trying to get enough vehicles in the market to where he could make money on automobiles in service.
Mhm.
Automobile industry, you don't make money on the cars. The finance groups probably do.
Yeah.
But the money that you make in manufacturing automobiles is in the services that you provide. And you have to play the long game. So, he's flooding the market with cars that one day need services, and that's where they'll make their money back, not on the point of sale of the car from a
Mhm.
manufacturing perspective, but how much the total value of the vehicle
Smart
will be
business
over the
move.
course of service.
Yeah.
And for us, I have to look at Chris Crosby, I think, is one of the biggest pioneers in this industry that figured out how to codify and streamline the manufacturing process of a data center from a
Mhm.
modular basis by standardizing, small, medium, and large, and then really figuring out. It's like when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, the 16 products that they sold, he made very simple. He says, we make products for consumers and products for professionals, a desktop and laptop. That's it. 4 products, 2 different groups. And he was so laser focused. And for us, I think that there are groups in this industry that are so laser focused, they're transforming the industry. And for us, I have to keep up with that transformation of industry demand from a labor perspective,
Yeah.
which is hard considering I'm always lagging, right? So figuring out that it wasn't hard to recruit or it wasn't hard to train. What is hard is to retain. And
Mhm.
retention is the number one thing for us to do that. We had to grow healthier. So you could see that we're investing the same amount of shit into that but we had to fail miserably over the last few years of retention to get to the point where we figured out, that's the real blind spot. And it's all because it started with stupid things like the 30-30 for 30. And then I changed the eating habit. And then I changed the drinking habit. And I started doing more workouts at a gym. And so everything starts small and then it grows big.
And then you're attracting the right talent too.
There you go. So, like, I hope that what people took, what's one thing that you want people to take away from this? And by the way, how can they reach out to you if they wanted to come get some
LinkedIn, is probably the best way. Jennifer Reininger, on LinkedIn.
very challenging name to spell?
It is. I mean, Smith was so much easier. We got to get back to that one too. But it's Reininger. So that's the best way, to reach out. And yeah, I think the
You want to
biggest
leave
thing
anything to
to
inspire them?
yeah, I think just staying consistent and giving yourself grace. I mean, I think a lot of people are way too hard on themselves on, like if they fail one day, like, oh, I'm just giving up. Like, I just can't do it. And, no, like give yourself grace. Like you're gonna have a mess up day. But challenge yourself and stick with it. Um, and bring people along. It's a lot more fun to do it, with
Yeah.
with people.
Surround
When
yourself.
I inspired Nissa to start doing the 30 for 30, and she even texted me this last one. She's like, "Are you gonna do it?" I'm like, "Of course I'm gonna do it." Like, I am horrible about remembering to log things, but anymore, it's just to be a part of that group. Like
I
that's
do it.
what it is. Yeah,
I don't compete because
yeah,
then I was listing with my times, and then I just have too many people shit talking me like, dude, I'm going to beat you with it. And the phone.
yeah,
I was like, I'm going to do this because by now it's just my lifestyle. Even when it
exactly.
ended, I
Yeah,
was like, I'm doing the same thing tomorrow. Right.
yep.
So, but it's a lifestyle. Right. But we all start from something. Providing each other in this industry a little framework to jumpstart the new human reset is important. I mean, I agree with you. More than 50% of this industry is probably stuck in a place where they wish they weren't. They just don't know how to start moving.
Yeah, and that's probably not just the industry. That's probably just
Yeah.
human nature, right?
Yeah. Sadly, I don't give two shits about the rest of the
No,
world. I care
but
about
we're bringing them
veterans
in.
and the data center
We're
industry.
bringing them into our industry.
I know.
Uh,
I do. I care. I care. But I'm only focused on our industry. Our industry is about to have a polar shift in urgency and attention just because the industry as a whole will reach a much larger stage
it's unbelievable.
soon, right? It's because of energy.
Yeah.
The oldest vertical, the most mature vertical of industry is probably the energy vertical. And turns out in the data center industry, you sell the same product as them. And that's called
Mhm.
power. The only difference is we sell space and cooling to go with it and a little connectivity. So it's a big difference, but these two industries are merging and it's going to be pretty interesting to see how that unfolds. But most importantly, we need people like you coming in and sharing your story, joining the revolution, using your voice, humanizing the aspect of being a professional woman in this space. Jesse's going to humanize the professional aspect of being a man in this space. And then hopefully we can create more people downstream of that and it becomes more infectious to those that are listening.
Yeah, and keep the positive attitude, right? I think that's another one. Like when you were talking about Jesse and I having that influence, I think probably one of the biggest things that people saw was my positive output that I put on all circumstances, whether they were challenging or not. Having that positive, you know, outlook on it, I think was helpful.
Yeah, 4 strikes and you're still not out.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell people. Like, I just watched a golf. I know it was
Oh, okay.
one of the greatest tennis players of all
Okay.
times. Uh, and and he was like, "Hey man, he was talking about the number of games he lost and the percentage of things that he hit. And he goes, listen, even when I'd get scored upon, he goes, it's just 1 point. Everyone had a setback. It's just one day.
Yeah.
So, and I just thought that was a very simple way to look at things. So for those of you that are listening, if you were inspired by Jen or the stories of Jesse or the things that are following, like you're going to have setbacks, like she said. It's just one day. Have grace with yourself and then start the next day brand new and just stay with it.
We can only control how we react to it.
There's no one that does it for 365 days. But do the best you can. And then once you start seeing those changes, the rest just takes care of itself. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like it just
You ain't going backwards.
No.
Burn the ships.
No.
Jesse's like, I burned those clothes. I cannot, you know what I'm saying? But it becomes addictive.
It is. Absolutely.
And if you have passion for it, then those around you become infected by it. So, Jen, what else would you like to leave? This is your third one. I know this won't be the last one because the journeys never end, but the human reset is real for everybody. Anything else you want to leave?
I think just, it's a choice and you just have to make that choice and it's
Nice.
your choice for yourself. Yes, there can be, inspirations, or, things that may have, kind of kickstarted it, but you have to do it for you,
Yeah.
for you to make it, actually happen. But it's
If
a choice. You can
Do it for
either,
those in your charge, whether you're a parent or a leader of a business, and then use that to drill
and no excuses.
and then it becomes about you.
Yep.
Well, listen, it's always cool to hang out with you, Jen. Thanks for coming to Austin
Even
and
though
sharing
I'm
your
Ohio.
story. I mean, like, despite the fact that you come from Ohio, look, I really enjoy these conversations. I hope those that are listening, and if you are listening, please like and follow subscribe to the podcast and chase down Jen, man. She's got a few years of scars to go with the callousing of the hands and the brain that got her to the point where she's living the best life that she's probably ever had right now. Right.
Absolutely.
And I've never seen you happier. I've never seen you healthier. And that's all that we could all hope for our friends. Right.
Yep.
So, well, listen, it's a pleasure to spend time with you. Thanks for making the trip and thanks for joining the revolution.
Thanks, Kirk.
You got it.